I think if we look at what's happening on the ground around the country, we understand that it's simply unfair to expect students to be paying more and more for these types of services. So if there is a university or a tertiary institution head watching this video who needs to address this problem at their institution, where do you recommend they begin?
I believe that the university has got a role to play. Equally, the Department of Higher Education and Training have got a role to play. I know that they're running workshops at the moment, the Department of Higher Education, investigating ways of solving this crisis, of particularly unaffordability of student accommodation. They're really working very, very hard at that. I think at some point the private sector must be introduced and invited into that sector. And when I say the private sector, I'm not just talking about the financial institutions, the banks and the Old Mutuals and the Sanlams and people like that. The actual developers who are involved in providing student accommodation, we do have some solutions that we can offer, and I believe if we all work together we will be able to solve this problem. In actual fact, we have to solve this problem because it's pointless sending students to university and not providing them with excellent student accommodation. If we provide them with good accommodation, they're going to pass. If we don't provide them with good accommodation, they're going to fail. And that's a terrible implication from a psychological perspective on the student itself. They worked so hard to get to university, then we set them up to fail. We have to, as a society, give them the best opportunity to pass. It's also very, very expensive sending our students to university. They go to university, they do their very best, but because of the circumstances, they're unable to pass, and that cost is never ever recovered. So I think it's in the best interest of the students, it's in the best interest of the country, it's in the best interest of all of us if we solve this problem. It's critically important that we do so.
John, can you tell us about some of the success stories that your company has been a part of when it comes to helping solve the student accommodation crisis that we face?
Well, as I mentioned, the best example is outside of South Africa, and that was because this particular country had a crisis. The university desperately required the beds, but they simply didn't have the money to pay for it. Their situation is much, much worse than South Africa. So what we did was we went in, we looked at the campus and we looked at it holistically, and we suddenly discovered that this campus was located in a commercially very viable area. So they had a lot of land, and probably about 60 to 70% of the university land was vacant. So we've gone in there and we've done an entire new urban plan for the entire university. The first question was, what are we going to do, or let me rephrase it, where is the university going in the next 20 years? What's their goal, what's their objective? So we first of all planned the university campus, where it's going to. The second part of it was, well, how are we going to pay for that expansion? How are we going to make this university, or how are we going to help this university become independent? And that's where the vacant land became very, very important. So on the vacant land, we're busy doing an urban plan on that, where we're going to be able to do close to 1 million square meters of commercial bulk on that land, which means that we're going to be able to cross-subsidize the student accommodation by doing that. So our point of reference was, how do we solve the student accommodation crisis? The solution was adopting a holistic approach to it and coming up with an alternative, which was commercializing the land that they did not need for the expansion.
So John, when you look at what our students are currently facing in terms of their struggles, are you optimistic that if the higher education department, along with the universities and the private sector band together, some of the challenges would be able to be addressed?
I do believe so. I believe they've all got to trust each other. I believe the students have got to trust the universities have got to trust the department, and the department and government has got to trust the private sector. Then, if we play open cards with each other, if the private sector goes and says, if I'm going to unlock my capacity, my wealth, and the money that I have locked up in the institutions, for example, the PRC, which is part of government, in Old Mutuals and stuff like that. In order for them to unlock it, it's got to make financial sense for them. So the private sector must say, these are my terms and conditions. The department must say, these are our terms and conditions. The students must understand the process. And once we play open cards with each other and sit and have a proper adult dialogue between all the parties that are involved in this question, I believe we're going to go a long way towards solving it. So the name of the game and the game changer is going to be once we start talking to each other and once we start trusting each other. I think that's critically important.
John, I certainly hope that we do see that happening in South Africa. In the meantime, though, do keep us updated on how your developments go. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
And thank you for the opportunity to meet with you again.